Suma.
Here.
VPFO Chantel.
Here.
VP Student Life Corey. Here. Catherine Van Helden is not present. Fatima. Present. Kathleen Olds. Sandra.
Here.
Laura Cupmore. Moyen. And we have Laura, right? Laura, and so Laura's joining us. And so as soon as we adopt the agenda, we will ratify Laura as a member of our council. Julia here. Cool. Any questions? Nothing? Okay. Moving on. So motion be it resolved that the agenda be adopted as circulated. I do realize that I put in minimum wage motion as notice of motion when it was noticed last meeting. I will consider that a friendly amendment to put it under new business unless we have any.
I have another amendment. I'll be doing a presentation for the audited statements, and then once it comes to the vote, we can vote on it.
So we'll put the motion on the floor first. So I can have a motioner. Musuma, second Corey. And so again, treating minimum wage motion as a friendly amendment, so we will not vote on that amendment. Amendment to add audit presentation to presentations. Would you like that before or after presidential search?
After is fine.
Okay. Okay. Do we have any? Well, can we get a seconder to that amendment? Any? All those in favor of the amendment? Any opposed? Abstentions? Amendment passes. Any other amendments to the agenda? Seeing none, we'll go to a vote. All those in favor of the agenda? Any opposed? Abstentions? That carries. Moving on, well, before we do that, now that we've adopted the agenda, entertain a motion to ratify Laura as the Law Society rep. Can I get a mover? Corey, second Chantel. All those in favor of ratifying Laura? Any opposed? Abstentions? Laura, congrats. So, do you have that statement of office?
Yes,
I You could send it my way, and then all we're set to go. Sweet. Okay, moving on to minutes of previous meeting. Currently, I have not been able to find or trace down April 18th meeting minutes. Don't know where they went. Don't know what happened. I have no idea. Would you know?
No.
No, you weren't there. Okay, so
So we're 1 second. I was there.
you were there.
Let's see. I might have these in my inbox.
If Chris has it, we will go back to it at the end of the meeting
Well, we can do it next.
or next meeting.
I have a question about meeting minutes.
Yep.
I was wondering if there's sort of like if they're supposed to be put on Facebook. No. If they're like how are they normally supposed to be circulated?
We don't. So we don't make them public until they are like they're passed here. Once they're passed here, like feel free to share them.
Oh no, not about sharing, but you know how we have a group, like a Facebook group, like a closed private group.
Oh yeah, yeah.
Yeah, I just know other societies do it that way. So.
I'm more than happy to post like our package on the Facebook group, but I'll still do it through email,
Okay.
because for us that's the official official call. So if you'd like for them to be on the Facebook group, then I'll definitely do that. And then for everyone not on the Facebook group, add me on Facebook, and I'll get you on the group. Been a little behind on that group. So that said, we don't have minutes for the April 18th meeting so can I entertain a motion to table it to the next council meeting? Annie, I know your name. Seconded Corey. I'm sorry. You changed your hair color. Maybe that's what.
Yeah. Excuses.
So, all those in favor of tabling April 18th meeting minutes to the next meeting? Any opposed? Abstentions? Motion carries. Moving on to June 16, those I distributed, or June 6, sorry. So motion be it resolved that the minutes of the June 16th meeting are be accepted as circulated. Can I get a mover? Corey, seconded. Suma. Yeah. I've been up since like the crack of dawn. It's a long day. So any amendments to these meeting minutes? Any discussion on these meeting minutes?
I had a question. For last meeting, for the counselors present, I didn't see my name on it.
Yeah, so when we get to that one, I'm gonna treat that as a friendly amendment because it's just, you were here, I missed that when I went through it, so that's cool.
I was at the April 18th meeting.
Oh,
Don't worry about it.
Okay.
They're there though.
Okay, so we've now found those minutes, but we will pass them at the next meeting. Seeing no discussion on June 16, all those in favor? Any opposed? Abstentions? Moving on. Motion be it resolved that the minutes of the July 25th meeting be accepted as circulated. Can I get a mover? Masuma, seconded. Annie?
You're the worst.
I know, sorry. I know, I see you every day. You're like next to my office. It's just been a long day.
She is.
I am.
I'm just trying to connect the neurons to my tongue to like
It's fine.
say words. So we have the motion on the floor. Do we have any amendments to July 25th meeting minutes? Seeing none, we're gonna go to vote. All those in favor of the motion? Any opposed? Abstentions? Motion carries. Okay, moving on. Motion be it resolved that the minutes of the September 13th meeting be accepted as circulated. So Sandra will treat your amendment as a friendly amendment to add you to that. There was also some misspelling of Moyen's name, so we'll make sure I'll treat that as a friendly amendment. We'll make sure that
Point of order,
September
September 12th.
12th.
Yeah, it was September 12th.
Oh, September 12th.
Instead of 13th.
Okay, so we'll treat that as grammatical. It was September 12th. Those amendments will be friendly. I'll make sure they get on before they're posted. Any amendments overall? See none, go to a vote. All those in favor?
Oh, did you get a mover and
Oh, I
seconder?
didn't get a mover. Can I get a mover? Corey, seconder, Annie. I was quick this time. All those in favor? Any opposed? Abstentions? Passes. Okay, no communications received. Moving on to, well, with the exception of our regrets. Moving on to appointments. So, appointment of council chair. So I'm bringing forward to the meeting the nomination of Chris Abraham as council chair for this year. Gonna do it like other meetings, so opening up first round nominations. Can I get a mover mover and a seconder for the nomination of Chris. Suma, seconded by Sandra. Closing first round nominations, opening second round nominations. Closing second round nominations, opening third round nominations. Closing third round nominations, so we are going to go straight into discussion or any questions. If anyone has anything for Chris. Chris is there. Chris was the chair for last year's council, and he has graciously agreed to be the chair for this year's council. So if you have any questions for him, now's the time before we go to a vote.
Point of order.
Yep.
Is it possible to appoint Chris as the interim chair, just because like there still are some issues with the process that we're working out? So like Chris would be so until we, like I think it has like the full date there, but could we amend the motion eventually, or this meeting to as like Chris to be the interim chair until like a proper process, just because it like isn't fully outlined?
So the process, as it stands in the bylaws, allows for a nomination and allows for any membership to be present at council and to be voted by council for the year.
Okay.
So we are allowed to do that as per the bylaws. I think the process, yeah, it's not, there's no specifics on the process. Now, if council wanted that, we would have to have an amendment, but if you don't. Okay. Any other discussions? Seeing none, we'll go straight to vote. All those, so the motion as it stands, as it writes here, motion be it resolved that the DSU Council appoint Chris Abraham as the chair of council. I put in quotations because that is the definition under the bylaws for the 2018-2019 DSU Council year. We did have a mover and a seconder to that nomination. So,
Just curious. Does Chris leave the room when we vote, or does Chris stay?
Chris, I believe, stays.
Just curious.
I'll leave if you want me to. Typically with, sorry, can I speak?
Yeah.
Okay. Typically if there are fewer nominees than positions or equal number, it's just an appointment.
Perfect. Just wanted to check. Okay.
Cool. We ready to go to a vote? Okay, all those in favor of the motion? Any opposed? Abstentions? Congrats, Chris. You're now the chair for the year. I will now leave it to Chris.
Thank you, friends. My name is Chris. As Aaron mentioned, I was chair of council last year. I don't know all of your names yet. I'm sorry. I will learn them as soon as possible. Looking forward to this year. And thanks to Aaron for chairing in the interim. Yeah, sure, I'll sign that. All right, let's move on then to the next item on the agenda. Be resolved that the DSU. It's typically nominations, so what we'll say is we're appointing a recording secretary of council. Do I have any nominations for recording secretary? Corey.
Nominate Julia Guck.
Julia Guck, do you accept the nomination?
Yes.
Do I have any other nominations for recording secretary? For a second time? For a third time? Close the nominations. Is there any discussion on Julia's appointment before we move on to the actual appointment? Yes, Val.
This is not about Julia personally, but it was just about this position, like how is it something where like it's posted online and people apply for it, or is it through kind of like a?
One of the members of the executive want to speak to?
Yeah, so within the bylaws, like chair, there's no specificity. And so I've brought forward Julia as a nomination. She's done it last year. And so in certain years it will be posted, but it's not required.
Any other discussion on this position? Councillors like a vote on this, or where we do only have one nominee for one position, according to union rules and procedures, she is appointed by acclamation. If councillors are okay with that. Then Julia is appointed by acclamation. Thank you, Julia. Up next, we have a chief returning officer. Do we have any nominations for chief returning officer? Aaron.
We have no nominations for chief returning officer, so I'm gonna motion that be tabled to the next meeting.
I have a motion to postpone until the next meeting. Do I have a second for that motion? Masuma, any discussion on the motion to postpone?
We tried to get it out as early as possible. The earliest we could get it out was Monday. And so we still have applications coming in. Our deadline day is October 15.
It's first on the website.
Sorry?
It's October 1st on the website. I think.
No, that's for the posting. For council to appoint the CRO is October 15.
Okay.
So from that deadline day of October 1st, we would have essentially 2 weeks to then pick someone, if that makes sense.
All right. I'm required to do 3 rounds of nominations. Do I have, or do 3 calls rather? Do I have any other nominees? Do I have any nominees? For the third and final time, any nominees for chief returning officer? Seeing none, nominations are closed. Oh, right. You had a motion to postpone. Sorry, I forgot about that. We have a motion to postpone and a second. All in favor of postponing this to next meeting? All opposed? Any abstentions? It passes. Up next, we have the Bylaw and Policy Review Committee. Did we want to do this appointment today?
The appointment is only for general member rep. We have our 2 seats filled for councillors.
Perfect.
So
then do I have any nominations for general member representative to the Bylaw and Policy Review Committee?
I get a no from, is it? Yeah. Too much reading? No.
Yes.
We want you to be successful.
All right. Science rep.
Can I nominate myself?
You're a council member, so we need a non-council member, I believe.
Yes.
For the second time, any nominations, non-council member, Bylaw and Policy Review Committee? For the third and final time, any nominations, non-council member to the Bylaw and Policy Review Committee? Seeing none, I'll close those nominations, and that'll come up at the next meeting of council. External committee.
To speak on it?
Sure. Did you want to speak to that for a second?
Sure. So the external committee is basically just like the advocacy and campaigns meeting and action meeting for the union. So I chair that committee. It requires 3 councillors, and we meet once every 2 weeks. I believe that the schedule for the meetings are also posted on Facebook, so you can find all the scheduled meetings for this semester. And if those times don't work for you, we can always figure something out. But it's super chill, super fun. If you're into advocacy and action and student issues, this is the committee for you. I do need 3 counselors as per the bylaws, so please appoint yourself so I can have this committee, because I need to meet with people.
To add to what Masuma is saying, it is a requirement in our bylaws that councillors serve on one committee, so keep that in mind over the next several items. With that being said, do I have any nominations for council members on the external committee? Yes, sorry, what's your name down there? I can't see your
Laura.
side.
Laura Cotmore.
Excellent. Self-nominates. Kathleen, did you want to self-nominate?
Yeah.
Perfect. Any other? Yes, also Laura Law.
Yes, Laura. Also self-nominated.
Perfect. Any other nominations for council member to the External Committee. For the third and final time, any nominations of council member to the External Committee? All right, I'll close nominations, and having only 3 councillors for 3 spots, they are acclaimed as per the Union Rules and Procedures Policy. I'm going to run. No, I'm not going to do that. Are councillors okay with that? So I can do a motion if you want me to, but I don't have to. I'm here for you. All right, let's move along then to the Society Review Committee. Annie, did you want to speak to this?
Yeah, we have all the councillors meeting, so we just be general members, but for just to reiterate what we've gone over, Society Review Committee is in charge of the ratification, as well as a few other duties in terms of society's policy and upholding that. Society Review Committee meets bi-weekly on Fridays, and then normally Friday afternoons, and we review ratifications from faculty and levied societies, as well as help mediate and work through any issues that arise within societies. But actually, I think there was another councillor who joined.
Sure. Do you need another councillor to join?
I don't need one, but there's one.
No. Then sure. There is in the bylaws, Vice President Internal, Vice President of Finance, 2 members of council who are not executive officers, and 1 member who is not a councillor. So there is a limit, unfortunately. You can speak to your committee members about that, and if somebody resigns, there's a vacancy. But if the only vacancy right now is for a member who is not a councillor, do I have any nominations for a member who is not a councillor? For the second time, any nominations for the Society Review Committee, non-council member? For the third and final time, any nominations for Society Review Committee, non-council member? Seeing none, I close those applications, and they will come up at the next council meeting. The Student Life Committee, Corey, did you want to speak to this?
Yeah, so the Student Life Committee is essentially in charge of planning and facilitating all the union's major programming. So our next sort of big project will be Snow Week in January, but we have several events coming up throughout the fall semester. So if you enjoy event planning or general student life, this is probably a committee for you. I think we have 2 councillors that are needed. But this is an open committee, so I can take as many people who want to join. I do have 3 messages from non-councillors who are interested in joining the committee. I was hoping to get those ratified tonight if possible.
Sure. So we need at least 2 members as per the bylaws. So as many as people want. Are there any nominations for council members on the Student Life Committee? Sandra. Any other nominations for council members on the Student Life Committee? For the third and final time, any other nominations for council member on the Student Life Committee? Seeing none, I close nominations, where Sandra is the only applicant. She is acclaimed with permission of council. All right, moving along to the non-council members. We need at least 3. Any nominations for non-council members? Corey.
I'd like to nominate Jessica Lynn Kempton.
I'm gonna write these down. How do you spell Lynn?
Lynn.
Cool.
Kempton. Yeah.
Okay, who's your second one?
Olivia Ward.
You got?
And sorry, one sec. Karan Sharma. K-A-R-A-N.
Yep.
S-H-A-R-M-A.
Noted. Have you confirmed with them that they accept the nominations?
Yes.
I will take your word for that. Any other nominations for non-council members to the Student Life Committee? For the second time, any nominations for non-council members to the Student Life Committee. For the third and final time, any nominations for non-council members to the Student Life Committee? All right, I'll close nominations then. We have 3, which is the number of positions that we're trying to fill. Is there any opposition to these appointments? Seeing none, they are claimed to the Student Life Committee. Up next, we have the office's steering committee. Does any member of the executive want to speak to that? Chantal,
I can speak to it. So the office's steering committee is responsible for like the oversight of the offices of the student union, such as the equity and accessibility office, the sustainability office. As of now, we're looking for 2 general members as well as 2 community representatives on council. If councillors wish to fill the general member spot, you're allowed to do so. However, it wouldn't count as like your one committee, but you are welcome to do so. It's just like a student and not as a counselor. But yeah, we have yet to meet, and we have some hiring to do, which is really exciting. But yeah, oversight in terms of like the office's like budgets, mandates, and goals, and just like bring any concerns to council when necessary.
Yeah, go ahead, Annie.
So we're hoping to get availability of the folks that join this week so that we can set a meeting for the following week coming up. As Chantal said, we're looking to hire, so that's kind of a time-sensitive issue. So we're trying to get folks availability this week. If you're interested, touch base with me before you leave.
Sure, Ms. Hewitt, go ahead.
I think the office's steering committee is a really great way to keep transparency and accountability between the offices and the union. Speaking as someone who has worked in one of the offices before, there used to be like, there still is a sort of like lack in connection and resource and making sure that our offices are supported. So essentially the steering committee is there to support our offices and maintain better relationships with our offices in case any personal conflict arises, because before it was specifically under certain VP's portfolios, but now it allows for more safe support for our offices.
Thank you, Masima. So we're going to have 2 rounds of nominations for this. The community reps on council are the Aboriginal students rep, the Black students rep, the International students rep, the LGBTQ2+, rep, students with disabilities rep, students living in residence rep, and women students rep. So do I have any nominations for any of the community representative spots on the office's steering committee? Masima, do you have
I
something
would
to say?
love to nominate Lovepreet, but he's not here and is sick, so I'm not sure if he would take the nomination. But
Sure.
I think that having an international student would be really great.
If we don't fill these positions, they will come up at the next council meeting. Any other nominations for community representative on the office's steering committee? For the third and final time, any nominations for community representative on the office's steering committee? Seeing none, I will close nominations. Those will come up at the next meeting of council. Next, we need 2 general members. So these can be anybody. Any nominations for general member on the office's steering committee? Yes, sorry, I don't know your name.
Laura.
Laura, right. I have been through this. Laura, did you want to nominate yourself? Yes, perfect. Any other nominations for general member on the office steering committee? For the third and final time, any nominations for general member on the office's steering committee? All right, I will close nominations then. We have 1 nominee and 2 spots. So with council's permission, that will be an appointment by acclamation. All right, Laura, congratulations, you're on the office's steering committee.
Hey, Laura.
The other position on that committee will come up next week. Moving along then to presentations. Up first we have the Dalhousie University Presidential Search Committee consultation, which I assume is our President Aaron Prosper.
Yeah. So some of you already know I'm on the Presidential Search Committee, which has just started. I didn't realize that I didn't get these questions out to everyone, but I did email them out. So you don't have computer, to your neighbor. But I guess what I'm going to do for our time, I'm going to do two things. I'm going to, with the questions, if you wish to provide me written feedback, that can be written feedback on behalf of your constituents. It can, you know, bring it back to your constituents, whatever it is. I will take written feedback from anyone and everyone, and my deadline to formulate all of it is the 10th. I have to present what I received by the 10th to the committee, so I'll take them up until the 9th. And so for the purposes of council, I'll just go through them verbatim, one by one. If anyone has any first thoughts, points they want to talk about, then we can discuss. So the first question, what are the challenges and opportunities for the next president and vice chancellor at Dalhousie?
Can I suggest that counselors maybe take in the question that Aaron's reading and then respond via the survey itself, just so that it's all in written?
Okay.
Because there is a survey that, that I responded to with these exact questions.
Yeah.
So
There is also, to Corey's point, I can send out the link to the survey. It's basically the same questions verbatim. So I won't go through it in detail, I guess. Unless, if you have it right now, is there anything in those questions you want to point out?
The link didn't work for me.
No?
Like,
Okay.
yeah, I got the email, but the link wasn't attached to it and it wasn't on the website.
Okay,
So
I will
email someone.
try my link, and then if that don't work. The link as in my attachment?
No, like
Oh,
from
like
the
the-
official dial email.
Okay. I will, I'll test
Did you
it.
send some to it?
No, I didn't.
Really? Okay. Yeah, I didn't get
It would have been the university. So the purpose of this, it's like, this is going university-wide. So it's going to external stakeholders, going to faculty, staff, everyone's getting these questions. They're not really taking anything in terms of the makeup of committee, or what the committee's looking at. They're staying strictly to these questions. So I'll leave it at that. Send me, if you have a written feedback, send it to me, and you can also send it via the survey. But everything that I get on my end, I will present it as student-specific feedback, because that's what I was mandated to do by the committee. That's all I have to say.
Thank you, Aaron. We'll move along to the financial audit presentation. Chantel, come on up.
I motion to go on camera.
I have a motion to go in camera. Do I have a second? Do you want to quickly justify
It doesn't have to
that?
go on camera.
Okay.
You don't have to go in camera. All right. Do you want me to put them up on the screen or anything?
I sent a PowerPoint to the chair email.
Ah, excellent. That's mine.
Would I be able to? Yeah. So I just want to grab pizza. There's a vegan pizza with like a vegan cheese on it. There's a meat pizza and a cheese pizza.
All yours.
Let's wait for Alex to grab it. Hello, my name is Chantal. I'm VP Finance, and we are just reviewing the audited statements up until the financial year of March 31st, 2018, and it's council's duty to approve those by September 30th, and then they go to the AGM, and then they're put on the website. Yes, amazing. Yeah, and they just have to be published on our website by October 31st of every year. And they must include the audited financial statements, such as the income statement, balance sheet, and any comments made by the auditors. Had folks not seen this document before, I sent it in an email. Just a note, the physical copy, there's like an error image. It's just the draft text in the back that just didn't print properly, but also, this is a draft document, so if folks could just hold off on circulating it for the time being. Wonderful. Cool. So what are the audited financial statements? They're just like a measure of transparency and accountability for the union, and assures our membership that we are compliant with accounting procedures for non-for-profit organizations, and is best practice among student unions across the country. Our auditors are PricewaterhouseCoopers, who are like chartered professional accountants, and they review our financial statements and accounting procedures every single year, and just let us know whether we've been compliant or not. So we get a qualified opinion, and this year we have, to the standards of PricewaterhouseCoopers, we have been granted that qualified opinion. However, on the back of the first page, it does have a little statement about our food operations and how like many not-for-profits won't achieve like full qualified opinion just in terms of food operations, because we offer like drink tickets and discounts. But other than that, we have achieved a qualified opinion according to PricewaterhouseCoopers, which is the largest accounting firm in the world. Okay. Cool. Just a quick note about, this is just on the first page, or sorry, I believe the third page, fourth page, might be the fifth page, that's the fifth page. This is just our revenues here. As you can see, there's an internally restricted fund, so that amount there does not get incorporated in our budgeting. This is just funds used for the health plan. We do not touch this fund. It never is used for programming or anything. It just goes straight to the health plan, and it's dealt with our health plan insurers. Wonderful. Any questions about that? The first line, as you can see, is the budget. The second line is what the actual funds were. The third is the internally restricted funds. And then the second two lines are just the addition of the internally restricted funds to the budget and actual numbers. There we have the expenses. Again, just a note, it shows here that amortization was 0 for the year, which is incorrect, and this will be edited by the auditors. Amortization is just an accounting term that refers to the process of allocating like intangible assets to a period of time. So this could refer to the repayment of loans. The student union pulled out a 25-year loan with the renovation of this building. The amount that will be added to that line is $16,640.35, which I can send out an email. It doesn't affect our bottom line. It does not really affect our cash flows. It is kind of like an intangible number. Cool. Wonderful. Lovely. So this is going to look a little wacky. I'm actually going to stand up and point the numbers out here. Cool. So last year, we had a surplus of $56,000, and here it looks like way more than that. And you can see this number here. So this is the value that was calculated based off of our loan. And the year before that, it looked as though we were going to have a deficit of $670,000. So I'm just going to explain that really quickly. When we enter a 25-year loan, you usually don't do so at a fixed interest rate. So the auditors are obliged to kind of like calculate what they expect it's going to be based on that year's interest rate. It does not affect our cash flows whatsoever, and it's going to like fluctuate every single year. For example, last year I believe the interest rate was 2.7%. This year it's a little lower, so it looks like we're making a huge surplus, whereas like that's not the case. That money will never really hit our account. It's just the predicted interest rate over 25 years. Wonderful. Again, the amortization rate was listed as 0, and the total number, what it's going to be for the year, is $16,640.35. The auditors are working to get this into the final draft, and that's why this can't be circulated yet. That's the only number that will be adjusted. Other than that, just a couple of dates. It does not have a great effect on our bottom line. Wonderful. There's also like a large amount of fluctuation between our accounts payable and our accrued liabilities. The amount that you see will change year to year. So what had happened this year was that when we switched over our health plan, they gave us a bill for 3 months rather than 1 month, and it kind of hit us at the month end. So it looked as though we were like spending more money than we usually do. If you remove just that invoice, it would bring the financials down to about 74,000, which is more in line with the norm every year. Amazing. And then third question. So Liam, who is a member of the Budget and Finance Committee, raised this during our meeting. Just a question about the lower than expected revenues for the Greywood and how we often have gotten a deficit on our bottom line. So the Greywood traditionally ran much larger deficits. However, after the renovation, it was $20,000, and then this year we're predicted about a $10,000. We do our best to keep our costs low and bring students into the bar because we do believe it's safer that they come to our bar rather than go downtown. And we absorb those costs elsewhere. However, it is a priority to kind of to achieve a lower deficit, decrease our deficit. So our bar manager is working with the university to kind of work on how we can do so within their stringent alcohol policies. We're not allowed to advertise alcohol or pricing. And student unions across the country, depending on where they are, their bars will often achieve deficits. For example, Acadia is in a rural town, so their bar will pull out an $80,000 surplus every year, whereas University of Regina can pull out an $80,000 to a $300,000 deficit. So it really depends on where your bar is situated, and we do try our best to keep our costs low, but our bar manager is working on a plan to kind of break even and achieve a small surplus. Amazing. So those were the questions that were brought up during the Budget Finance Committee meetings. Does anyone have any questions about the statements? As per the bylaws, I do have to answer them within a 2-week period. Yeah.
Sorry if I'm just ignorant of this, but what is the South African Trust Fund?
So that is a student levy that was run in the 90s as a product of the apartheid in South Africa. So that money was collected and it's used to as a scholarship fund for students, and I believe that's actually been transferred over to WUSC. I think there was another referendum question to push that money to go to WUSC, which also brings refugees to Dalhousie. I can get you the exact breakdown of what the referendum question was, but yeah, I believe it was ran in 1992, so it's been collected. Any other questions? Yeah.
I don't know. Oh, I think it's on page 13 or something. I don't know either. I'm just wondering if funds are still being collected for the capital campaign,
For the what, sorry?
At some point it's talking about the capital campaign to fund McCain building or something, and it seemed funds are still being collected.
I don't believe they're collected. What that could refer to is, I believe the MOU with so we rent this building from the university for $1 a year, but we are required to spend at least $10,000 of our budget on renovating this building with student spaces. So I believe that refers to just that, and actually I believe the capital campaign does refer to the amount. So I will get this in writing, but it is, I believe, 50 cents. 1 second, sorry.
Pretty sure in the notes there's a section that talks about what the capital campaign is for. If you want to just read what it's about and the main funds that it goes through, I'm pretty sure.
It does refer to renovating this building and student spaces. It is a fund that we do collect every year, but I think it can also be to this building. It can refer to sexton spaces, student spaces, and spaces that we have autonomy over. Yeah, I believe the amount that was given to the McCain was a donation so that they would open a cafe in their building, so folks would come here for coffee also. But I can get that in writing as well.
Yeah, maybe just some clarification, because it seems like the only write-up I see about the capital campaign is talking about the McCain building, and then there's still two there's the DSU renovation fund and everything, but then there's still another line.
The facility improvement and then the operations or the. Okay. Cool. I can get that in writing and I can send that out to counselors. I have to do so actually. Any other questions about the audited statements or format? this just, by approving this, means that it will go to the AGM and the financial statements will be posted onto our website. If you have any questions, you can send them to me tonight, or in the next 2 weeks, I guess.
Thank you, Chantel. And I encourage councillors to email her questions if they think of them. Let's move right along to all right, we have committee reports, beginning with the Senate Caucus.
Okay, what's up? So the Senate Caucus met on September 9th and September 23rd. It's been a bit interesting in terms of, like, we had an arts rep, but then the arts rep stepped down. We still don't have an agriculture rep, just like we don't have an ag student on council yet. So I think just flagging that for us, the DSU, and figuring out how we can make sure that our constituents at agriculture campus ensure are represented. I'm looking to fill. I have about 3 more seats that are available, and I'm working with different community groups such as like international students and ensuring that we have like a Black student rep as well. So I'm working with DeBalsa, the Dalhousie Black Students Law Society, to see if they have a member, and it seems like they do have a member to appoint, so that's great. All subcommittees are filled. Senate has been interesting, and I think it's been a large but good learning curve for a lot of people. And I've been getting a lot of positive feedback from faculty senators and administrators saying that our Senate caucus, the Student Senate Caucus, is amazing. It's on fire. It's always so organized and amazing. So I wanted to take that good feedback and present it to council that our Senate student senators are getting amazing feedback, and they are contributing so much to Senate in beneficial ways. So I'm happy to announce that. All subcommittees are filled. Senate Discipline Committee is filled. Senate Appeals is filled. Myself and Aaron had a presentation last Senate, basically our DSU report. Historically, it's been done by the Vice President, Academic and External, and the President, so we brought that back this year. And it was fun doing it together, because it's really important that we work together for the Senate portfolio. Yeah, we presented on what the union can offer students, and faculty learned a lot about the union, and they were actively surprised and happy about what the union's doing. So much so that we had a faculty member really engaged with how they could help us fund an accessible Tiger Patrol, because we talked about our plans for that, so that was really cool. Yeah. What else happened? I'm working on setting up a meeting between the vice chair and chair of Senate with all the rest of the student senators to have like a meet and greet, which is what has historically happened, but it didn't happen last year based off of scheduling issues. But yeah, I think it's been a really good go so far in the 2 meetings. We have, I think, 5 more meetings scheduled for this term, 1 in October, 2 in November, and maybe 2 in December, or 3 in November. Anyways, it's hectic, but it's been good so far. And yeah, I think I did want to bring up an issue in terms of like an academic issue that's been put my way. So after we did the presentation, when we had our Senate Caucus, I spoke to Senate Caucus about what issues they wanted to bring up. So one of the issues was they felt that the rollout plan in regards to the sexualized violence policy was lacking, as students don't know that the policy exists, and there has been like a lack of communication. There was a full sort of plan that we had been given, but we haven't seen the implementation, so I flagged that at Senate. I've been getting some feedback from students about the interface of DAL Online and how terrible it is and how it looks like a Windows 98 sort of startup and how that's really ridiculous when we have a computer science program at DAL. So I flagged that because students don't even know that they can pay for their tuition through DAL Online because it's really inaccessible. I flagged an issue as well of graduate students being put in very difficult situations by their supervisors based off of some student cases that have come to me where students are, especially international students, are sort of left in a very uncertain position if their supervisor does not get along with them and withdraws supervision. Where essentially they're kind of forced to leave if there's no other project that they have, and there's a lot of visa implications, and if their funding gets cut then they can't find a job because they're not in classes. It's a very long process, but I flagged that. As well as an issue that got flagged to me this week, I met with a student who complained about student access services, specifically about the note-taking accommodations that are very widely broadcasted at the institution. Apparently there are major gaps in the service where students are actually not getting the notes for their courses. This student specifically talked about the four out of 5 courses she requested for note-taking to be done. And she was told by Student Access Services that she won't be able to get those notes for a few more weeks, and she has midterms next week. So the student who needs accommodations is not being accommodated for based off of gaps in the service. So I think that this is a bigger conversation that I hope in the future we can talk about in council and maybe put forward a motion to address this. I'm hoping to put forward a motion through Senate and work with BOG as well to address maybe it is more resources that Student Access Service needs and more full-time staff support, because it seems like students are just like not being helped, especially when they need the notes to do their academic work. Anyways, Senate Caucus is great. I'm so happy. Good team. There are still some vacant positions, but I'm working on filling them. So that's me.
Thank you, Ms. Suma. Any questions for Ms. Suma about the Senate? If you think of any questions, feel free to email her at any time. Up next, the Board of Governors Caucus. Aaron, did you want to speak to this briefly?
No update. The next meeting is October 16. And I sent an invitation to everyone on the student blog mixer that Jeremy's helping to plan. I highly encourage everyone to go out to that. Please go out to that. Please show up. And Angela Davis is speaking right after, so it's, you know, if you're looking for a thing to do before you go to see Angela Davis, come to the mixer.
Thank you, Aaron. Any questions for BOG? All right. Again, feel free to email Aaron at any time. Up next, we have Dalhousie Student Union Standing Committee reports. Were there any standing committees that wanted to submit a report at this meeting? All right, if there are none, then we can move along to new business. Up first, we have the society policy. So that would have been noticed and sent around to councillors. I wasn't here, so I don't know who moved it, but do I have a mover and a seconder to adopt the society policy? Moved by Annie, for the second for the society policy. Chantal. Excellent. Let's open debate on the society policy. Annie, did you want to speak about this?
So, just so folks know, there was only 3 amendments that were really made to the policy. These amendments were made just to make sure that the society policy is still allowing societies to thrive within their mandates. And I can go through these amendments really quickly just so folks know, because they may or may not have been highlighted in the copy I distributed, so I can just let you folks know. So the 3 major changes that were done was just a society line item about third-party users, an item about the way that resources are allocated, and then just a number minimum for society members. So I'll just go through those. If you have it in front of you, section 3.2 reads, society shall not permit third-party users of its privileges. This section was added as it was observed that the privileges were actually being abused. Organizations were coming in and using the society resources that students fund and students pay for. So section 3.2, 3.3, and 3.4 are just in place to ensure that societies aren't at risk for outside organizations coming in to try and use their resources. Any more questions about that, you can certainly ask. So that was section 3.0.
Okay, so the one that I had in my email doesn't have 3.3. It wasn't the amendment. Yeah. I thought it was.
Do you know if that's the one that was distributed to councils?
I don't know if anything was distributed after the last council meeting, but this is the one that I received is the old one too, it looks like.
It's because I took it from the email that you sent me, and I just copied it and I didn't look at it.
What happens if the old one was the one that was circulated?
I'll leave it up to council, but my advice would be a motion to postpone.
Okay, because I can also send it to you right now. You can put through that.
Okay, it's up to councillors. If councillors think that it was adequately noticed and are comfortable voting on it, then I certainly won't stand in the way. You want to email it to me?
Sure, I was going to say, can I email it to them? And then, want to go through it together? What email do you want me to send?
Oh, DSU chair at gmail.com.
Annie,
Yeah.
is there any urgency to get this passed tonight?
Well, it just like it helps SRC to ratify folks under the new policy, not the old one, but there's no real big push. It's three really small amendments, so I think if you pull it up, it'd be okay, but if not, then. But we can move on to the next agenda item if we can table it.
Sure. So do you want to postpone it until the end of the meeting or until next meeting?
We can postpone it till next meeting.
Okay, I have a motion to postpone this until next meeting. Do I have a second for that motion? Aaron, any debate on this motion? All in favor of postponing, raise your hand or otherwise indicate. All opposed? Any abstentions? Motion carries. We will bring this up at the next meeting. Up next, the DSU audited financial statements. Chantel, is there a motion associated with this?
Yep.
I put a motion in a Word document. You
Okay.
you motion it if you want. It's up to you. So this would be further resolved.
Yep. That the DSU, I would say accept the audited statements.
I'll take that as friendly.
Yeah, okay. And just a quick note, this would just, by accepting them, this would allow us to present them at the AGM and then publish them to our website. So that's what a vote in favor of passing these documents. I am in favor of it because I believe that having these documents on our website is a measure of like transparency and accountability, and it also like allows folks to like raise questions about how we do things. So,
Thank you. So Chantel moves. Do I have a second on this? Corey, thank you. Any debate on this motion? Anybody like to? Seeing none, are councillors ready for the question? All right, all in favor of accepting the DSU audited financial statements 2018? All opposed? Any abstentions? Motion carried. Up next is agenda item 8C, which is on the agenda as Dalhousie Student Union Annual General Meeting. So be resolved that the DSU Council approve the DSU Annual General Meeting to occur on November 7th, 2018. Do I have a mover for this? Aaron, do I have a second? Suma? Aaron, did you want to speak to this at all?
We just have to set a date by the end of the month. So this date will be in place of council meeting on that day. That said, if council feels there's a need to have council before or after the AGM, we'll do that. But we already set the dates for council, so this will be in place of the council date on the 7th.
Cool. Thank you, Aaron. Did anybody else want to speak to this motion? Asuma?
Yeah, I think the AGM is a really great way to get members involved. I think in the past we haven't been able to achieve quorum at our AGM. So if every counselor could agree to bring like 10 folks to this meeting, it would really make a difference. I think it's really important that we do achieve quorum at this meeting so that our members know that we are actively doing the work and ensuring that we're representing them to the best of our capabilities.
Cool. Thank you, Asuma. Sandra?
Point of information, what is the quorum, or what's the amount of?
So quorum in the bylaws is 10%, and so.
1%, sorry.
1%.
1%.
It is 10%.
Of the student population?
It's 1%.
It's one. Oh, it is one. Sorry.
That's voting
10%
turnout.
is elections.
Yeah.
Yeah, okay, my bad. That'd be a crazy AGM.
I wouldn't want to chair it.
No, it is 1%. Yeah, so that'll be anywhere from 170 to 200 and some people for the year. What we do it is based off the official number the university gets us for the amount of students, and then we take the 1% of that. And I believe we round up if we're on 5. So, yeah.
Any other questions or debate on this motion? Council's ready for the question. All in favor of approving this AGM date, raise your hand or otherwise indicate. All opposed? Any abstentions? The motion carries. Up next, based on the agenda amendment, we have the minimum wage motion. I believe this was circulated at the end of the last meeting, correct?
Yes.
Okay. I didn't receive a copy if somebody wants to send me
I
one of
will
those.
do that right now.
That would be excellent.
I also don't have a copy.
Okay.
If you wouldn't mind.
But do I have a mover to adopt this policy? Or, yeah, mover for this policy.
A motion,
A
not
motion,
policy.
okay, sorry, a mover for this motion, Asuma. Second, Chantel, excellent. We'll open up debate on this while Aaron gets us the wording. Asuma, did you want to speak to this?
I'm just trying to bring up the motion.
Sure.
Was it included in the?
It was not included in the package.
Can you bring it up on the screen?
I will as soon as Aaron sends it to me.
Okay, then I will speak on it.
Okay. Chantel, did you want to speak to this? Or do we want to take a 5-minute recess while we figure this out?
I can speak to it while folks look for it.
Sure.
This is
Sent
a,
it to you.
Go ahead, Chantel.
yeah, cool, yeah. So this motion is accompanied by a campaign that's being run by students and community at Dow. And this motion would equate, the passing of this motion would equate to me writing a report talking about the feasibility of making all jobs in the DSU $15 an hour. It doesn't necessarily mean that it's going to happen, but the feasibility of it happening and like what that would look like, and potentially develop a plan. And it just equates to the motion that folks should be paid a minimum wage of at least $15 an hour. And that's all I got. Have you folks got it?
Thank you, Chantel. I have the motion up on the board now. Does anybody want me to read it out? All right, is there any further debate on this motion? Anybody else want to speak to this? Go ahead, Matsuma.
Yeah, I think, fair wage is a student issue, and it's been an issue for a long time, especially when we talk about students not getting unpaid internships and all these sort of issues, and students bearing the brunt of high tuition. I think it shows a lot if our union can at least make a step forward in addressing the fact that we are not paying students that work for our union in the best way that we can, we're not paying them a fair wage. So I think acknowledging the fact that there is a lot that we need to do to rectify these issues, I think I would persuade you to vote in favor of this. I'm also working with the community groups who are putting this on and the students to ensure that they are supported for their march and sort of protest and action that they have on October 2nd at 12 p.m. outside the Killam when we're gonna march, because I believe that's the day that we have the lowest minimum wage in the country. So it's sort of an action, so if you can't come out to that, please do, but I really encourage you folks to vote in favor of this motion.
Thank you, Ms. Huma. Any other debate on this motion? I'll accept comments from the floor.
So I wrote the motion, and I'm just noticing that there's a bit of an issue with the last line. It says, report their findings back to DSU. That should have been the DSU council.
Sure.
I don't know if you'll consider that a friendly amendment or not, but I leave that to.
Yes, and I'm feeling friendly.
It's germane.
Yeah, I definitely don't think that that's outside the spirit of this motion. Councillors, I'll provide a more thorough orientation for, do you want me to change this too?
Yeah.
But I don't think the DSU council is going to
sorry,
provide the wage. Councillors, I'll provide a more full orientation, hopefully before our next meeting, but if you ever disagree with anything that I say, you're very welcome to challenge me. I'll speak about that more before the next meeting. So, I'll take that amendment as friendly. Any other debate on this motion? Yazid, did you have further comments?
So in April, council passed a motion saying that the Bylaw Policy Review Committee should develop an issues policy that supports several things that were listed in that motion. One of them was a living wage. And so that hasn't been developed yet, but at the same time, there is a campaign that's starting, and we want to, well, I was hoping that the executives would have a mandate from council to participate in campaigns that support a living wage while the issues policy is still being developed. Because until the issues policy is being developed, technically there isn't a mandate. So this is sort of let's sort of provide a temporary measure for executives to be able to stand on. The second clause is meant to ensure that internally we are consistent with the values that the DSU would support. Again, there is an issue of fiduciary duty here, and to that end, the second clause doesn't ask that we immediately raise wages, but more so to explore how we can do that, and if we need a referendum, if we need to, what options are available. So I'll leave it there.
Thank you, Yazin. Any other debate on this motion? Are councillors ready for the question? All in favor of this motion, please raise your hand or otherwise indicate. All opposed? Any abstentions? The motion carries. Moving on to old business, there is no old business. Executive business. Did we want to go through individual reports, or have councillors read them? I'll leave it up to, yeah, go ahead.
I'll say go straight to questions.
Sure. Are the executive okay with this? All right. Then we will consider those reports read. Notices of motion. This should have been taken out in the agenda amendments. Are there any notices of motion?
No, but I'm going to speak to the schedule I sent out. We're going to implement this after this meeting. So I sent you all a detailed schedule. You'll get it. Everything's highlighted, gives you all the days. I explain it in the email in detail. Essentially, it'll tell you the days that any reports, so reports of your committees, reports of our executives, all that are due. And then the following day, I have, so every Thursday, I have a one-on-one meeting with Megan, our policy and governance coordinator. So the idea is, if everything's in to us by Wednesday evening, or early in the morning on Thursday, I'll take that. That we will then look at it for Thursday, and then on Thursday afternoon is when council will be noticed, if that makes sense. And that will happen in a cycle every week. Yeah, and it gives you time to read everything, gives us time to look at the motions and to see if they abide to policy, bylaws, to everything, you know, gives us time. So, with that said, what will happen is for notices of motion, they can't be noticed just when we get to the agenda item. They have to be noticed prior to the meeting. So they have to be a physical agenda item with the notice, with the material distributed before the meeting. And there it is.
Go ahead, Andy.
Just a question, does council meet during reading week?
Let's see.
Because.
When is reading week?
No, we don't.
Oh,
Okay.
okay, so it's just the reports that are due during
It's
reading
just
week?
the reports,
Okay.
because me and Megan will still be meeting that.
Yeah, because we still work then.
Yeah, I just wanted to.
And if you have any questions about that, please feel free to talk to Aaron. If you have any questions about procedure, feel free to email me. I'll be emailing you lots. If there are no other notices of motion, move along to announcements. Does anybody have any announcements? Chantal?
Black and Gold is this Saturday. It is a homecoming event. It is from 11 till 4. There will be a 19 plus licensed area, but it is a free event. The Melatones are playing. It's gonna be really cute. That's all I got.
Thank you, Chantal. Massimo?
Yeah, the 15 in Fairness March / protest / action is happening October 2nd at 12 right outside the Killam. So if you're down to do some action and talk about how you deserve a fair wage, please show your support. If not, send your friends. If not, yell and clap as we walk by you. That would be really great. But really hoping to see you folks up there.
Are there any other announcements? Chantal?
I have one last one. Faculty and Levied Societies audits are due to me October 12th, which is a Friday, and that's coming up soon. So that's it.
Jeremy's Mixer, I sent you the invite on the calendar.
Jeremy's Mixer.
Yep.
Any other announcements?
Fog mixer.
Fog Mixer.
Very true. If there are no other announcements, we've exhausted all the business on the agenda, and this meeting is adjourned. Thanks, folks.
Never take pizza home.
Thank you, Julia.